Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of I Know, the 20 something. I forget. But I don't have too much on my plate today. And this was the first episode that I recorded, and that was really not that great of a recording. I think I skipped over like 3 albums. And we are ranking the Paul McCartney albums, and I have somebody with me who I kind of know. Her name is Jen Dodge. She runs a Paul McCartney Facebook group. And how are you doing today, Jen?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, actually. I'm super excited to be ranking Paul albums. Always dangerous, by the way, but it should be a lot of fun too.
It's like picking your favorite children.
You can't, but then you do anyway. I feel like all parents have like their favorite kid, but when it comes to McCartney albums, like, how do you do it?
Like, these records are my kids. It's like, but first, I do want to flash a little pickup, not Paul related. It's Live in Japan, which my grandmother gave me for Easter. Out of print, very hard to find now, which I don't know why it is out of print, because the Harrison estate, but they still haven't released Early Takes Volume 2, so I don't know what to expect. So first of all, what is your favorite George Harrison album?
It's so cliche, but I think All Things Must Pass has to be up there. Like it's funny, like all the Beatle albums have some really good songs on them and some clunkers, all the solo albums. And All Things Must Pass, I think, is one that just has more good than clunk on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What's your second favorite that's not All Things Must Pass?
Oh, I'm gonna go with Brainwashed, believe it or not.
You and I are gonna get along really well.
It's just so good, and it's his last. And how do you not love that? But even amidst all that stuff, that song's on there.
Even with the cold sounding voice, with the his nose plugged voice. If you pay the price.
Call it the Bob Dylan voice, yeah. But he really does have some good stuff on there. And Brainwashed being like the title track, but also just, he's just so angry. And Angry George is the best kind of writing,
It is. Really what's number 3, just out of curiosity?
Oh, that's a good question. I almost want to say Living in the Material World, but I don't know if that really counts, but I'm going to go with it anyway. So
I'd put self-titled probably sub out for Material World, but
yeah, again, you can't go wrong with any solo Beatle. Well, some Ringo stuff, yeah, but yeah, you can't really go too wrong.
I will say there are a few albums that I don't love. What is your favorite John Lennon album?
Oh, that's another good one. I want to say Milk and Honey, maybe, or even Imagine, which is again a little bit cliche, yeah, but it's not going to be Two Virgins, that's for sure. But but Walls and Bridges, same thing. And then I know some people who were in the Elephant Band with John and Yoko, and so Elephant's Memory. And so some of their albums that they played on are also up there too, just because I know the people on them. So it's kind of cool.
Interesting. Are you a fan of Mind Games?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There are some, again, good songs on there too that I think are worth, having on the iPod,
Yeah. What is your favorite Ringo album then? This one's a Ringo. This one's so obvious for me.
Yeah, it's got to be Sentimental Journey, I feel like.
Oh, really?
I know. I'm going to go there. Yep.
That woke me right up.
I noticed you went up like a foot, like, what?
I thought you were going to say Ringo.
Well, yes. Like I try when possible to avoid like the cliche ones that everyone goes towards. So that's why, like, for example, Chaos and Creation by McCartney is not in my top five. But it's also just like I just like some offbeat stuff sometimes, and that kind of works for Ringo. But even like his newer stuff, like Ringo Rama, is pretty good too. It's not, again, amazing, but for Ringo's stuff, it's not bad. So yeah.
So you got to think of it as a Ringo album, as I always say.
Yes, yes. And when you go into it with that, it's kind of like watching your cousin's dance recital. Like, it's your cousin, so you have to kind of like it, but at the same time, it's really bad. But you're still going to applaud anyway. So,
Not with some Ringo albums, but with some.
it's true. It's true. I like the scene in Family Guy where they have Ringo coming to the Beatles, like, guys, I wrote a song, and they're like, oh, we're gonna put it right on the refrigerator. Like, that's how I feel like Beatles fans look at Ringo stuff, like, aw, he tried so hard. But he does have some good stuff when, like, every once in a while, just either accidentally or on purpose.
Like
Like the No No song, for example. Just every once in a while.
I mean, you could probably say that Photograph is the best solo Beatles single because of the Beatle connection and brilliantly written.
I do think so, and that's I'm really glad that George helped out with that one, because that one came out so fantastic, and I would agree that that's one of the good ones for sure.
Yeah, Ringo with a little help from his friends.
Exactly. 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 Poor Ringo.
So getting on to the topic, we're ranking the McCartney albums. Picking your favorite children. What is your least favorite child?
So when you sent me this as a possible topic for today, I went, yes. Then I went, oh no, because it's so hard to do. And I'm so worried I'm going to get jumped by some random McCartney fans in public when they see this, because some of the albums that people love, I didn't do that. I didn't put them up very high. So
I didn't either. So
okay, so we're going to get jumped together. It's going to be awesome. Kisses on the bottom. It wasn't even that hard. Like, the minute you said that, I'm like, and the last one is. Because he made it probably about 15 years too late. I think if he had made it in the 80s or 90s when he still had that crooning voice, he could have wrecked those songs in the best possible way. But the album just really shows and highlights the weakness of his current voice, and so it's just not a great showing. And I'm surprised that he released it, but I'm also surprised that he dedicated it to his wife as like a love letter to her, because I thought he loved her. But and then this came out, and I'm like, oh, okay.
He redeemed himself with New.
Yes, but there is, like, again, like My Valentine is, it's got Clapton on it, and it's not a bad song.
That's a McCartney classic. That's the only song that I would consider a McCartney classic on that album.
Yeah, the rest of it I had to keep checking. Is this Paul? Is this Paul? Is this Paul? Because it just the cracks in his voice and the weakness and the reediness really came out, and it was just kind of sad in a lot of ways. What is your least favorite?
This is like one of the rarest records I own. Paul, get a better producer.
Oh, you did it. Good for you. Good for you.
I tolerate Kansas City.
Yeah. That one's going to appear very soon on my list too, actually. But okay. Yes, Kansas City is the only standout track to me on that one too.
The rest I never want to hear again. I'm sorry, Paul. You did it better in 1999. Which we'll get to very shortly. But I mean, just the production is so bad on this album.
No, you're right. And I tend to not look at like standards or covers as like original McCartney's, but they are part of his album collection. But that is the weakest, besides Kisses on the Bottom, which burn it. That one, the power of the songs doesn't come through. You're right.
I mean, it's a great track listing, but
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's my number 27. What is your number 26?
Okay, so here's where it starts to get a little bit of a hot take. I have McCartney 2 as my as my number 26. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And in preparation, I spent a couple of days listening to all the albums again, and I just could not pull a lot of songs off of it that were like on my iPod. There were songs I want to hear over and over again. And maybe it's because it's dated a little bit with the synthesizers and with the whole like, like pew pew sound effects, but it just doesn't really work anymore in a lot of ways. There are some good songs. He played Temporary Secretary in concert the past couple of tours, and it's pretty cool live. But on the album, it just sounds awful. It really does. How about you?
Pipes Paul, you came out with a masterpiece, as we will get to, in 1982. This is promotional copy, by the way. You came out with this album. You started off the 80s with 2 fantastic records, in my opinion. But I like 3 songs, 5 songs off of here. I love Pipes of Peace.
Yes.
I love The Other Me. I love So Bad, and I love Say, Say, Say.
Yes.
And I like Through or Love quite a bit.
That's interesting. I also had, what did I have on there? This is one of those albums I had to be like, what are the songs on this one again? Sweetest Little Show isn't terrible, but I know. But you're right. I had to really stretch to find some songs on there that I would want to hear over and over again, because it does sound very dated. Very dated.
I don't like the word dated, but that's like the only word you're not allowed to use on the show.
Tell me why. I want to hear more. Tell me why.
Because we use the words music as at its time, because we don't want to say that a person is dated.
No, fair point. You're totally right. Fair point. It does definitely, and I grew up a little bit in the 80s, and I didn't like the 80s, and this album brings me back there hardcore, and I'm going with claws in the ground, dragging me down there, and I'm like, no, thank you. So it is a very 80s sound to it.
I just don't really want to hear that record again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one for sure.
So that is my 26. What did we already talk about your 26? Yeah, we did.
McCartney too.
All right. Sorry.
Cool.
Memory's a little bad because I liked that album so much. So
I rocked you to your core.
It's been a hard day's night.
That's right. So your memory is almost full, and so we're on 25 right now. Bad puns.
All right. And 25. What's your 25?
My 25 is your 27. It's the Russian album. I'm not even going to pretend I can pronounce this. I totally can't.
Chava Chonva VCCP.
Oh, good for you. So I can't do that. Well, what's the only reason why I don't have it down a bit lower, like below McCartney 2, for example, is because some of the songs on that album are some of his soundcheck classics, like Midnight Special, for example, or Cracking Up from the Unplugged album. But I really like not his version per se, but 20 Flight Rock and Just Because. I feel like if the production were better, it would blast through my headphones, and they don't. Like the songs with so much power behind them come through like little ballad bubblegum songs in some cases. So it really could have been so much better, but it just isn't, unfortunately.
I think it would have been a great album if the production was better. It really would have been.
Yeah, the song selection, as you said, is just impeccable. These are classics that anyone who loves rock should know. And his voice was in prime condition at this point. He could have ripped through those things, and he might have, but the production is so poor, we just never know.
Right. So my 25 is, I think that there are some real gems on here. There are 3 gems.
Should I seat belt and get ready for this? Because I'm a little bit worried now.
You should not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
No More Lonely Nights is one of his best songs ever. Not Such a
Correct.
Bad Boy is a classic.
Hmm.
And No Values is a classic.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't do Beatle redos, Paul.
I think even George Harrison blasted him for that, saying that he must be out of ideas if he's doing Beatles songs over again. But yeah, the movie itself, why?
Ugh.
Why? But then the album with mostly covers of his own songs, like it just doesn't make sense. But he buried these amazing songs on there. You're right.
I mean, I enjoyed that album quite a bit just to play on for amusement. But as an album, I don't really like it. I think it's an overlooked album. As an album, it's overlooked. But the
Yeah, I
movie
feel
is
like
downright terrible.
yeah. Like if it had been a 4-song EP, for example, where he did those three plus maybe one of the interludes, I think it would have done pretty well and it'd be great. But because it got weighed down with tagged onto the movie, which was garbage, like a marijuana induced piece of garbage. And then you have this, like the album with Beatle covers. It's just, ugh, yeah, yeah,
Not the greatest album.
no.
So, what is your number 24?
So only because, and the production was a lot better on this, but only because it's covers and not really original Paul's like from one song. I have Run Devil Run as 24, and my cat agrees with me too. She's here agreeing with me. So,
Oh.
so again, if he had done more songs like Handsome Brown Eyed Man on there, I think, like more original McCartney's kind of thing, or just something that was a little bit better than just the covers. But if you look at Honey, Hush, and Party, for example, like this album is on fire, like he is ripping through this stuff. And him playing at the Cavern Club with this album was perfect
And the
because, like,
vocals. This
oh
does
my
not
God, yeah.
sound like 65-year-old Paul vocals. It sounds
No,
like
this was
24-year-old.
Yeah, and I think that the songs that he chose really highlighted what he could do with his voice, and he just ran with no regard, like the old long tall Sally Paul, who just ripped through these songs and really made the skin, like, the hair on your skin stand up. Like, this album is awesome, but it's not Paul original, so I put it down lower. That's it.
Yeah. My number 24 is another covers album, Kisses on the Bottom.
You did rank it up there.
It's cute. I appreciate Paul doing this. I know he loves Nancy.
Yes.
The other wife is a little questionable, but
yeah.
My Valentine, I think, is one of a classic.
Yeah.
The other original is pretty good, and I'm gonna sit myself down to write myself a letter, but it's just nuts. I'm gonna pull 500 more albums before I pull any of these. But those 4 bottom albums are the ones that I'm gonna pull any other solo Beatle album, probably. The rest, I all like these albums to varying degrees, I will say. And I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would say too. Like, I definitely agree with you, and I would definitely pull Run Devil Run before some of the other albums I have in the 20s, for example. But you're right. Like, these are albums that I had to dust off to listen to because I don't listen to them really much at all. So
yeah, but so what's your number 23?
I shockingly give my regards to Broad Street is right there for the reasons that I've already talked about. But if he ever wanted to make me pass out in concert, he would play No More Lonely Nights, and I would be on the floor because I love that song so much. And when I was a kid, like maybe like middle school, that one came out and it put him back on the MTV play charts. And my friends were like, "Have you heard of this Paul McCartney guy? He's so cool." And I'm like, "Oh, tell me more." Wearing my Beatles shirt, tell me more. So it really was kind of awesome as a fan to see him back in the public eye, like people's my age, like they were talking about him. And so that song really holds a special place in my heart for that reason.
Yeah, my 23, Tom Hunyadi, if you're out there, hold your cap. Egypt Station.
Oh.
I have a feeling you have this a lot higher.
I So yeah, I do have a higher for sure. It's not the best thing he's ever done, but there's some really fun songs on there for sure. Why do you have it this low, could I ask?
There are just some songs that I cannot stand on this album. I am sorry.
Can
I
I
love.
guess one of them? Can I guess Back in Brazil is one of them?
I hate that song.
Thank you.
I love. I don't know. I love.
Mm,
Love Happy with You. I love Confidant. I
mhm,
love Hand in Hand.
mhm.
I like Despite Repeated Warnings. Interestingly,
It is interesting.
everything else. Dominoes is okay. For You.
I love that song. I know I'm such a weirdo. I actually love that song. I know it's Ryan Tedder overly producing it, but it's just such a fun song.
It is fun. Good for you that you like it.
I'm definitely in the minority in my own the group that I started on Facebook. I'm in the minority on that one too. But
It just doesn't do much for me. It's his weakest of his latter day stuff for me.
I would definitely concur that it doesn't rank high up there. Like there's some good stuff on there, but it's not again an album that I've listened to as much as I've listened to other albums in my top 10 of the McCartneys, for example.
Yeah, but great album. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely would agree.
It's an okay record. It's like a 6 out of 10 album for me.
Mm-hmm.
Solid B plus.
Yeah, and that sounds about right, honestly, too, for me.
So what is your number 22?
This is the first appearance of a Wings record on my list. This is Back to the Egg. And yep, yep. And I feel absolutely terrible because I actually have met and am friends with Denny Lane, and I know Lawrence Juber, and I've met Steve Hawley, and I've actually heard the three of them together play the Rockestra theme in concert in front of me, and I don't like the album very much. There's some good stuff on it. I think that Again and Again and Again is one of my, I love that Wings song that Denny wrote. And I love the video for it. And I love the stories behind the video. And I love Getting Closer and To You. But I cannot stand Arrow Through Me. And there's some other songs. Yep, I know. There's some other songs on the album that just grate on me. And so for that reason, it's my lowest ranked Wings album, believe it or not. And By Your Face, I feel that you're going to come after me now. So do it. Let's do it.
Number 22, London Town. Angie Nichols, I apologize. Oh, Kit. Hey, Kit. Oh no, Jen. Love Back to the Egg.
Kit, hey! One of my Facebook friends. Hey. I know, Kit. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I'll redeem myself, Kit. Don't worry. I love side one. This is an album where I love side one. Every song on here I would give a 10 for side one and with a little luck. But the rest is just...
Yeah, it does drop off dramatically at a certain point in the track listing for sure.
Yeah, it's just pretty a little weak for me nowadays. I used to really like that album, but I think my maturing strong lyricalness kind of gets in the way. I kind of like stronger lyrics.
And that's the hard thing about being a McCartney fan is that like I definitely as a reformed English teacher, like the words are really important to me. I don't come to McCartney songs for the words, but some of them it's like "Fa you" for Egypt Station. It's like you make me want to, but I want to know how you feel, and I'm like, oh, that's a great sign. And then it's tagged on with "You make me want to go out and steal." I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? So yeah, the uneven lyrics are definitely a problem with McCartney, but his melodies make up for it, obviously.
Yeah, that's why Lennon and McCartney were so equal. Future episode, folks.
They needed each other. They did.
What's your number 20? All these albums are amazing from here on.
Yeah, and with the caveat, I'll just say that I think that you hit it on the head. Like these albums over time have rotated on my list repeatedly. Even today, I made the list yesterday, went back today, changed some albums around
I changed it
because
15 minutes before we got on. I was
yeah,
changing it.
yeah, because like music is so personal and it really depends on where you're at, where your head is at, where your heart is at. And like some of these albums definitely they switch around. But Pipes of Peace is my 20, and that one is usually towards the bottom third of my McCartney albums. It's not terrible. I love Pipes of Peace, as you said. I love Say as well. Sweetest Little Show is good, but it's definitely an album that I think fit better in the 80s and in the 2010s, and so 2020s, I mean. And so it's really easy to look at it now and go, ew, what's that? You know, but I think that if I were listening to it back when it was put out, I might have a better response to it, but I just can't really play it over and over and go, wow, it's so wonderful. It's not going to happen, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the whole dustbin lid on another. I mean, everybody picks on that, but I love that line. And everybody picks on Say You Don't Love Me, My Salamander, which is a song. Oh,
I love that.
I love that line.
That's such a great line. It really is. That's one of my favorite lines, actually, from that album. So.
All right. Number 20 for me. Get ready to like throw me off this because this is going to get really bad.
Here it comes. No! No!
I love this.
Putting this 20.
I love this album.
Apparently not.
I love this album.
Oh, that's literally an arrow through me right there. Arrow through me right there. So why do you have it as 20 out of 27?
I don't, and I believe.
He's like, I'm leaving. I know. I'm like, okay, well, bye. So no,
so there are just, I have to be in a certain mood to enjoy this album. But when I am in that mood, this is the greatest album that he's done. When I want to hear something homespun that's just him, this is the album that I go on. And I'm just going to say this. This album is so hard to find on good condition, in good condition on vinyl.
Yeah.
I mean, they chew this up, even though it was so panned by the critics. It's like chewing up. But I would give this a solid 8.5 out of 10. But I mean, it's just not an album that I come back to this. And I do love Karina Clore. And maybe I'm amazed is in his top 5 songs.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
Solo wise. What's your favorite McCartney song, just off the bat?
Oh God, that is such a loaded question. And it changes from day to day and moment to moment sometimes. There's so many good ones. I at the moment one of my favorites is Mull of Kintyre. But Big Barn Bed is up there for me for sure. It's one of the greats. I like Pretty Boys from McCartney 3 that just came out. It's so hard, but Calico Skies might be one of my absolute favorites, I think. And Hey Jude, of course, I can't stop listing my favorite song. So how about you? Put you on the spot now. How about you?
Oh Woman, Oh Why.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
And probably Ballroom Dancing too.
Which is actually one of the reasons I picked one of the albums for the spot that it's in. So that's good. Oh, goodness.
So, what is your number 19?
So, 19, I have McCartney 3. And it's not because I don't think that it's an amazing album. I do, actually. Okay. I haven't listened to it as much as the other ones in my rotation. And so that's why I have it a little bit lower. But I've already mentioned Pretty Boys. Like I got a chance to hear it before it came out. And when I heard one of those, so when I heard the first 2 notes of Pretty Boys came over the computer, and I was in a puddle in love already. Like that's how much this song means to me. I just love it. But When Winter Comes, Find My Way, Kiss of Venus, I just like the album. It's got a good feel to it, I think. Plus, one of the songs was recorded during the Flaming Pie sessions, and so
I thought it was Off the Ground.
was it off? I thought it was Flaming Pie, actually.
I
But
think
maybe
it's.
I'm wrong. You could be
But
actually right.
it was in. I know it was recorded in the same sessions of Calico Skies, and that was in the
Yes.
Off the Ground era.
Thank you. Okay, because that was on Flaming Pie, so I got really confused by that. But I think you're right about that. But yeah, it's just like when you have that those kind of songs together. Like I think it was Great Day and Calico Skies, and then When Winter Comes, we're all together. So those are 2 of my favorites from Flaming Pie. So it just kind of resonates with me. So I put that one on number 19 anyway.
Yeah, but my number 19, the second Wings appearance. This is an underrated album, and I love this album a lot. And that's Wings at the Speed of Sound.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
like all the other songs that people did. I
Mhm.
like Joe English's song "Must Do Something About It." Come out of the
Yeah, his
hiding, Joe,
vocals.
so I can
Yeah.
interview you. Let Him In's a classic.
Yep.
I even like Cook of the House.
Do you? We will agree to disagree on that song, but poor Linda. I love Linda, but not
The
a fan.
lovely Linda.
I know the whole the sizzling grease as it starts off. I'm like, this is gonna be a song right here. So this is gonna be a good rock song.
But that is my number 19. Good album.
It definitely is. There's definitely some highlights on there for sure, and some lowlights, but
And possibly the greatest tour of all time of the 70s.
I
Better than George's.
Yes. Yes. So my 18 is where I'm going to, I think, have some problem with people watching because they're going to want to come after me for this one. But I ranked it this low. Chaos and Creation in the Backyard I put as number 18. And I'm waiting for the bombs to go off. I know. And it's not that it's a terrible album because it's actually a really solid album. I don't know. It just something about it's a little bit slower and a little bit more, a little bit more ballady than I would prefer. Yep, I know, Oliver. I'm sorry. But there's some really amazing classic McCartney songs on there, like Follow Me, for example, Friends to Go, Too Much Rain. It's great songs, but it's not an album that fits a lot of the moods that I'm in, so I don't listen to it as often as I probably could,
Kind of like how I am with McCartney one. I kind of consider that. I mean, Chaos is, like his Plastic Ono band.
Yeah, and I think, and it's like even the producer on the album is such a great producer too. Like the
Nigel
whole thing
Godrich,
is well
I
done.
think.
Yeah. He worked with the band that I love, Guster, who I just really appreciate. He did one of their albums and some Radiohead and such. But I do I love I love some of the songs, but then I also can't stand, for example, At the Mercy. I can't stand it. This never happened before. It's never happened on my iPod. So, nope.
It's Woman and Wives Part 1. At the Mercy.
Yeah, and Women and Wives is not my favorite on McCartney 3 either. But but there's just something about the album that doesn't fit me, and so that's why I have it down a bit. And so I know that it's one of the top 5 McCartney albums of everyone's list, basically. And there's me in the corner no, 18.
It's not in my top 5, I'll tell you that.
Okay, I feel a little bit better. Pressure's off. Good. So, I don't think you have it this low though, but
you'll see.
Yeah.
So my number 18 is Run Devil Run.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the amazing vocal performance, No Other Baby, even though it's a cover song, is one of his best songs ever. I hold that on the standard of Maybe I'm Amazed. It goes nowhere, but does it perfectly throughout the entire song.
No, it's really well said. And like I said, the album is amazing. Like it really is. It's absolutely fantastic. You can't
Yeah.
knock it. You can't find any song in it that you would skip over on your record player, for example.
Yeah. So that gives us to 17. What do you have at 17?
That's where I put Egypt Station. And this is where people are like, wait, you put Chaos and Creation behind this crap? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Only because that's the mood that I'm in right now. Like the album has a lot of fluff on it and some absolute garbage. There's some absolute garbage on this album, And the fact that he chose to put Back in Brazil as one of his video songs, I'm like, really? That's the one you're choosing? It just kind of makes you think about I think one of the critiques of McCartney over the years has been the guy cannot choose his singles. And he really does release some garbage instead of the gems on the album sometimes. And I think that, this album, Back in Brazil, shows that really well, that he cannot choose a single to save his life. He really can't.
Yeah, my number 18 is pressed. 17, I mean, is pressed to play.
Mm-hmm.
This album's really grown on me. I still kind of consider it weak, but
mm-hmm.
and it probably ranks lower on most days, but it's fun, it's poppy. Talk More Talks, fun. Also the name of the best solo Beatles video cast. Let's be truthful.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one.
Yeah. Stranglehold's one of my favorite songs of his. Only Love Remains is a classic. Footprints. I like the bonus song Tough on a Tightrope. It's one of the ones where I'm waiting for him to reissue vinyl or just send me a nice copy and shrink so I can have it framed on my wall, because the cover does not match the material on the album, but it's a beautiful cover.
It is, definitely. Yeah,
but
black and white of Paul and Linda is just amazing.
Yes. So, what is your number 16?
I have Off the Ground at 16. And the standouts from the album for me, Off the Ground is one of them, and Hope of Deliverance, which I know he's played in concert in the past 10 years, but only in South America. And then he played it once in Florida and then dropped it after that. And I want to hear that song live, hardcore. That song is so good. But it also has Cosmically Conscious, and I was able to hear him do that in concert. I think the one time he played it was a David Lynch Foundation concert in New York City with all the special guests, and that one live sounds a lot better than it does on the album, for sure. Like Betty Levette up there ripping her vocals on that thing, amazing. But it's definitely an album that I don't think is his strongest solo, but it still has some good stuff on it that'll make you bop around a bit,
You will talk about that in just a second, but it's one of the albums where I want an archive release for really badly.
Yes.
Because, 93, vinyl guy, no issue on vinyl in the United States, only in the UK. And at 93, it's hard enough to find. But you're going to be surprised to see this high, most people. I know. Before we had the show, we had a discussion on this album. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go for a drive.
Oh yes, yes.
I love this record. Mm-hmm. Lonely Road's perfect. From a lover to a friend. I like the title track. Heather is great. Your Loving Flame. Kind of chaos. I do. Tiny Bubble.
Yeah.
I will say Freedom is terrible.
Oh God, yeah. Absolutely.
His place was in the right heart, but it's a bad song.
Oh God, yeah. Yes, absolutely. He doesn't do well with political songs, really, and so Freedom is the latest offering that just like, oh, that's so sweet, put it on the fridge, but no, don't release it.
Yeah, but he had his heart in the right place. But yeah, that's my number 16. What's the number 15 choice for you?
I have New there, and I like New actually. I think on my way to work, Queenie Eye, Alligator, Early Days, New, and being able to hear some of those songs live just made those songs sound just more amazing than they already do on the album. But I do like it quite a bit, and I know that again the first single was New, and it just sounds like bubblegum pop again. Like it's not as good as On My Way to Work, which I think should have been the single that went off there to really bring the album to people's ears. But there's some great stuff on there, great stuff. But I think that the choice of New as the single made people think, oh, it's just Simple Paul again with his simple lyrics and simple melodies.
It
But it's a
sounds like a Penny Lane remake, the song New.
it does like like Justin Bieber had, like had been in the studio with him doing it, like baby new. But just, I wish that he would do some better single choices to really promote what the albums are about versus just like the poppiest one.
Yeah, but it's a good album, I think, overall.
I love the album. Yeah, I do.
I have it really high, but so my number 16 is Off the Ground. This, I think I'm just tired of this album because I play this album. I've played and played this album. I'm just tired of it. That's why it's number 15. It'll be in the top 10 next week. That's the thing.
No, it's so true. And there's something to be said about that, the song fatigue. Like there's some songs that I've heard Paul play, like My Love, which is I used to love a lot, but when I hear it at every single concert, I can't stand it anymore. I'm like, oh my God, you need to stop playing this song. But there is something to be said for album fatigue for sure.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. But it's a good album, I think. Solid effort.
I do too. I really do. I agree with you on that one.
Really underrated. I think besides Driving Rain, it's his most underrated album, personally.
Yeah, I do. There are some releases that were within about a 10-year span that really get overlooked, I think. And I wish it wasn't the case.
Yeah. I think it's like started with Off the Ground up to like Driving Rain, except for Flaming Pie.
Yep. Yeah, that the whole era, people seem to just really downgrade those albums quite a bit.
Except for Flaming Pie.
Yes, which is, masterpiece. Yeah, absolute.
But so what's your, so now to number 14.
14, I have Tug of War, and I have it down at 14. Even though it's a good album with some great stuff like Tug of War, Ballroom Dancing, Get It, which is amazing. But I kind of refer to it as his duets album. And it's almost like he had some songs. He didn't have enough for the full album. And he was trying to figure out, how do I flesh these out? Let's call Stevie Wonder. Let's call Carl Perkins. Not that it came off bad. It's just that I feel like some of the songs are a bit weaker, and it was kind of like a puzzle piece album where I've got some stuff. Let's cram it in, see what happens.
Interesting. I don't agree with anything, but we'll agree to disagree.
That's the beauty of Paul fans. We all have such different tastes. It's all. I know, Oliver. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Oliver.
But so my number 14 is so I guess they call you my temporary secretary for this show. I love this record. Coming Up is a classic. Temporary Secretary is a classic. Waterfalls. I love Frozen Jap. I love One of These Days. I love this whole album all the way through. It's a masterpiece.
What's interesting? A lot of the re-releases have really led people to look at these albums again. And
I agree.
I feel like a lot of these albums were put out maybe 10, 20 years too soon. And I feel like McCartney too was definitely put out in the wrong time period because it was so sort of front runner for what was coming up next, And I think that he definitely is starting to get that credit that he deserves for McCartney 2, for example. All those songs on there, they really are experimentally wonderful,
Yeah, and I know a few people who rank that as their favorite Paul album.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I've got a friend, Ethan Alexanian, and he ranks this as his favorite Paul album. Oh, when will he release his Permanent Assistant?
That's the fall of McCartney 4 is coming out, Oliver.
If we're still in lockdown in 40 years.
Right, that's right. And if Paul is still crooning, which I'm pretty sure he will outlive all of us. So
he never has too much on his plate.
No, I don't know how he does it. 78, and he runs around the stage like he's, the 20-year-old is crazy.
The 20-year-old's limping while he's...
I know, he's up there. Like I watched the man full on fall down a set of stairs, running from the piano to his bass guitar in concert, and he just whoa, and he popped up and he just shook himself off like a dog was wet, and he was like, and I'm like, I would have torn some ligaments if I had done that. He's up there, he's doing his thing. So whatever he's drinking, he better keep drinking it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. So what are we at? Number
13, I believe.
Yeah, 13. What do you have? What's your 13?
So that's where I put Speed of Sound, and like I said, I redid this morning, and now I'm like, I should have ranked it lower. It's true, but I love Time to Hide. San Ferian's wonderful. I cannot stand Cook at the House, and just the fact that it exists on this album has me have it that low. But again, it's not my favorite Wings for sure. I don't think it's anyone's favorite Wings, honestly. But there's some good stuff on it, There's some good stuff on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sentimental. I know for a lot of people that's ranked really high.
Yeah, I think it deserves to be definitely, ranked up there in the Paul albums, but I wouldn't make it break my top 10, for example. So
correct. So my number 14, this may shock a little bit of people. This was number 27 a few days ago until I replayed this album.
Oh my God. You did not put it this low.
This was my number 27 Paul album.
Oh my God.
I hated this album for the longest time.
Oh, but it is true how that can happen. It is very true how that can happen.
I mean, My Brave Face, You One or Two, Distractions, We Got Married, Put It There, Figure of Eight, This One, That Day Is Done. I'm not a big fan of Don't Be Careless, Love How Many People, and Motor of Love.
Yeah, those are lackluster for sure.
And Rough Ride is okay, I guess.
It's definitely, medium.
But it's a good album, I think. And the demos disc really gave me appreciation on this archive.
Mm-hmm.
The demos is still... Oh, somebody else hated the album, too.
Oh, Oliver. I can't even. I love it. I love this album so much. And you'll see it on my list a little bit later. But so, it's hysterical how we all listen to the same music, especially Paul, and we have such diverse opinions about it. It's so cool in a lot of respects, that we can all think differently about these amazing songs and albums that are out there.
I agree. And all right, so you're number 12.
Number 12, and I'm looking at this again, and I'm like, why did I have it at 12? But I've replayed the songs in my head. But this album has my least favorite McCartney song of all time on it. The album is London Town, and whenever I hear the opening notes of Girlfriend, I literally tremor, and then I hit skip immediately. I cannot stand Girlfriend. Cannot stand Girlfriend. But I definitely love Children. Don't Let It Bring You Down, Deliver Your Children. I've Had Enough. Great songs on there. But I do think that it's one of those Wings albums that was barely a Wings album in a lot of ways. It was right at the end of their tenure. But it also I think that it gets overlooked, but I also don't think that it's one of his best. You know.
Yeah, it that one fluctuates a lot for me.
Yeah, and it's got to be a mood situation that happens. Like certain times of the year, I'm like, oh, London Town. Other times, ew, London Town. So it definitely goes up and down on my list for sure.
I used to think it was Linda falsetto.
Okay, thank you. Because at first I'm like, what is this?
All
What
right,
is this garbage?
leave this StreamYard room or not, but this is really fatigue factor.
I'm worried. Oh, but yes, I totally get the fatigue factor.
And I cannot stand the song Mamounia, and I cannot stand Picasso's last words.
I will
Side one
say,
is absolutely perfect,
mhm.
and no words. And this album is nothing, no good without Helen Wheels. If for us Yanks,
Totally agree. Totally agree.
um,
People hate that song, but I think it's amazing.
it's underrated, like
Yep.
half of these albums. But
Yeah.
it's a great album. It really is.
But you're absolutely right. The fatigue factor will tend to do that to you, where you just can't hear the songs anymore.
Yeah, Oliver had it ranked really low, number 16, I think. But
Mm.
it's a great album. And I think if I wish Denny Sewell, who I've interviewed on the show, I wish he stuck around for this album because I think it would have, with an amazing drummer.
Can you imagine Denny's
Yeah.
Sewell on this album? Oh my god.
Yeah. But so what is your number 11?
That is where I put Wildlife. That album I think is amazing. There is something rough in that sound to it.
Wait, we skipped over number 12.
Did we?
Yes. I did.
Okay.
So
Okay. So I also think I skipped one too. I had Press to Play at 21, and somehow I skipped that, I think. So
okay.
that's what Press to Play was 21. But so what was your number 12?
Then
Or
okay,
sorry,
then we're back on track. My number 12 was Electric Arguments. Great album.
Mm-hmm.
Masterpiece. Really overlooked. Reissue that, Paul. I want that badly.
Yes. Yes. I bought one of those really ridiculous silver tin boxes, like the special uh, uh, release of it, and it's just I just love the album so much for sure.
Yeah. But so number 11, back to that.
Okay, so that's where I put Wildlife, like I
Yeah.
mentioned.
That's a lot higher for me.
Yeah, and that's one of those that it does fluctuate. I think my top 10 fluctuates quite a bit, and Wildlife just got kicked out of it just this week because I happen to like the other songs more for some reason than the other albums. But Wildlife, like songs like Tomorrow, I know that Bip Bop is kind of a bit controversial, but I like it.
Oh, I love that song.
I think Paul himself hates it, I think. But some people never know. But I like the untamed, not overly produced sound of it, and I do like McCartney 3 for that reason too. That it's he's really been a little bit too polished in this past maybe 4 or 5 albums, and I just wish he would go back to that roughness that he did on this one. You know,
It is a perfect album. It really is. And critics, I think Rolling Stone. No. Go with what the fans say.
Yeah.
The real fans that actually like the albums. But
Yeah.
So my number 11 is Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Lyrically, I think it's a masterpiece. Fine Line does not fit on this album.
It does not.
Riding to Vanity Fair is one of his best songs ever.
I agree.
I love Friends to Co. I even like English Tea. Too Much Rain.
Mhm.
Follow Me is great.
Yep.
Anyways, great. The whole album, not a clunker.
Yeah, it's one of the few, and that's why I think it is a good album, but I ranked it lower because it doesn't fit me, in a lot of ways, and what I want to listen to. But you're not going to go wrong with that album. You really aren't. I
Yeah.
think you're right.
But so now we are to the top 10.
I know, this is exciting. We should have like streamers going off or something. So, my number 10, I have Venus and Mars on number 10. And I really love songs like Letting Go is amazing. Live in concert, much better. He recently brought the horns back for the live version of Letting Go. Good choice. Venus and Mars, rock show. Magneto and Titanium Man, amazing. When you see Demi Lane perform Spirits of Ancient Egypt live, you just can't beat that. But then you have Love and Song, and I just can't tolerate that song. So that's why I have this album in my lower part of my top 10.
What do you think of Magneto and Titanium Man?
I like it, actually. It's so weird. It's so quirky that it pops. But some days I'm not a big fan of it, but most of the time I definitely want to hear it.
That's my favorite song on the album, but
Yeah. It's so it's so unlike a lot of the rest of the album that it's perfect.
I've never been as big of a fan as Listen to What the Man Said, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know it was, again, like his choice of singles sometimes confuses me.
And
Um,
I love this song, but why was it not on Wings' Greatest?
well, and there's that too. Like some of the Wings greatest and the Wingspan. Some of the songs on Wingspan, for example, were a weird one too. But it's like if you put it out as a single, wouldn't it be one of the greatest? Yeah. So
But I mean, you had Another Day and you had Uncle Albert, which weren't Wings songs. So, whole other
yes,
episode where I love that album, but I'll trash the track listing.
there was definitely a huge problem. Like he really did. He went too heavy on certain eras of Wings versus the other eras, and it's just kind of a confusing album altogether.
Yeah, but like, just Jimmy McCulloch on this album is like I can't. It's just perfect. And
When
if he had lived,
yep.
if he had lived, who knows what he have had done.
Yeah, and I certainly I appreciate all of the Wings guitarists. They were all amazing for different reasons. Jimmy was a firecracker on that guitar. And one of my good friends is writing a biography of Jimmy, actually right now, with Jimmy's family involved in it. And
Paul Saley.
yeah,
Oh, you're friends with Paul?
I am. Yeah, we have
Interesting.
mutual friends. How cool!
I know of him, but
Yeah, Paul's a really good guy. He's a wonderful receptacle of anything Wings. He knows everything about Wings and everything about Jimmy. And he's really opened my eyes to Jimmy's solo playing and career, basically, in a way that I'm appreciative of. So I definitely wish there was more Jimmy and Wings, but.
so yeah, I have New at number 10.
Mm-hmm.
I love Save Us, Alligator, On My Way to Work, Queenie Eye, Early Days, New, Everybody Out There, I Can Bet, Looking at Her, Road. And I do like Hosanna, just not appreciate. I don't appreciate.
Thank you. I had a really good friend who thought I was insane for not liking that song. But when you sing the title of the song repeatedly, like to start the song, the whole song is a mess. It's an absolute mess to me. It doesn't go anywhere. It's garbage. So, but you're allowed to have that when you have 27 solos or albums of solo and not. You're allowed to have some garbage.
Yes. So what is your number 9? Number 9.
Memory almost full. Memory almost full. Memory almost full. I love it. For the reasons that I cannot stand appreciate, I cannot stand gratitude.
Oh, nobody can.
Well, shockingly, I have met some people who are ready to fight me over that one. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that song is crap.
Can you tell me who? Is it some people I might know that I get to go?
I don't want to put them on blast for liking garbage, but you like garbage. And I'm going to be one of the few people who does not appreciate Mr. Bellamy as it should be appreciated. I can listen to it, I like it, but I do not find the genius in it. And that could just be where I'm at in my life right now. I don't know. But I think that That Was Me, Dance Tonight, Vintage Clothes are amazing. And the medley of That Was Me, Vintage Clothes, like the medley on the album is like amazing too. I love it. I love it.
That's not a medley. It's the first medley I've done since Abbey Road.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're just putting songs together, but okay. So I only call it a medley because he did, and I'm like, okay, sure. But you're right, it's not a medley at all.
I have Red Rose Speedway at number 9.
Mm-hmm.
What a fun album. It's Ram Part 2.
Yes.
Big Barn Bed, My Love, Little Lamb, Dragonfly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you had Mama's Little Girl and I Lie Around on there, it would have been number 1. And swapped that out for Only One More Kiss and a couple other ones.
Yeah.
It would have been number 1.
Yeah, it's funny because I have that next as number 8 on my list, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Single Pigeon is also a great one on there, but I do think that there are some songs that are keeping it from being up higher on my list for sure. Like I think that, for example, it's a weird one, but I think that if you put Sea Moon on there as a fun little like hidden track kind of thing, it kind of make the album a little bit more fun and interesting. But it's a fun album. Like it's an amazing album. It really tells you about this guy who's, early on in his family and he's having some fun. So, I love it. I love it.
It's a great album. It really is. So number 8. What is your number 8?
That was
Red Rose Speedway. Yeah. Oh, mine. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it was the first time we've actually kind of agreed. So it was weird. We have an 8 and 9 that are back to back, so it's cool.
This is the album that kind of came before it. Wildlife. Every song is a gem on this album. I even like Love Is Strange. I love Bip Bop. I love Dear Friend. I love Tomorrow. I love Some People Never Know. And I love I Am Your Singer. Masterpiece.
I feel like if I Am Your Singer was not that one, but Love Is Strange wasn't on there, I think what's the song that I hate on there? There's a song on there that I cannot stand. But if it had like one little straight out, I feel like it would have been up high on my list too, I think. But I do agree that it is a fantastic album. You can't knock that album, really. You can't.
Everybody says that it's boring, but I disagree.
Yeah, it's the new band finding their way, and it's just a really rough, fun album. I love it.
Exactly.
Very homemade feel.
So, what is your number 7?
So that is where I put McCartney, and I think that album is amazing. I love Maybe I'm Amazed. That's right. Maybe I'm amazed by the album. But Every Night, that's such a great song. I love it. The Lovely Linda, the little throwaway little melody. I love that song. That Will Be Something. Amazing. I just feel like that album is another underappreciated one, but it does show that he was definitely going in a different direction post Beatles, and you can tell by the albums that all 4 released post Beatles, like the 1 and 2 albums they released right after, that they were all going in very different directions as Paul's direction he was going into,
Yeah, like the first 4 Paul albums kind of sound similar, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like he's trying to establish his own solo sound, but then he's kind of like, whatever, let's just do this now. So, but I feel like there's a lot of pressure on all 4 of them, obviously, to be somebody after the Beatles, and I think it hit them all differently, and Paul just kind of boxed himself in some ways, but in a good box, like a nice box.
Correct. So, My number 7 is McCartney 3.
Ooh, I love that.
I am proud to have this up high because it's his latest release. That
Mm-hmm.
3 Imagined. Ugh. I don't have anything nice to say about that. Long-tailed winter bird, Find My Way, Pretty Boys,
Oh
Women and
God.
Wives, Lavatory Lil, Sliding. I don't know if you're familiar with the this sounds like a Tom Petty ripoff song, but
Which one?
Sliding sounds
Yeah,
like Honeybee
I'm not
from
familiar with Honeybee.
Wildflowers.
I'm not familiar with that one, but
But
it doesn't sound like Paul. You're right.
but look up Honeybee when you're done, and when we're done, and Find My Way sounds like Learning to Fly.
Oh, and I wonder too. Like, I feel like with the Petty re-release that just came out, the Petty, the Petty collection just came out. I wonder if like Paul didn't buy it, listen to, and he's like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." Then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, I'm learning to fly too. Here we go." So I do have to wonder sometimes, like when he's seen at a Lady Gaga concert, for example, and then I'll put out a song, and I'm like, "Wait, that sounds a little bit like you're trying to be somebody you're not." So I wonder what's happening there.
Yeah, but classic album, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think it's getting a lot more. It's getting dumped on in a lot of McCartney forums that I'm in as not being that great. I couldn't disagree more. I really couldn't. It's a great album. I think it shows that Paul still has everything,
It
um,
does.
and the songs fit his current voice. And I think that, like in concert especially, he really strains to do like the Beatles songs in the original notes, the original keys, and
Yeah.
it's painful sometimes. But this album is an album that he is using his voice to its finest right now. So it's definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, number 6. What's your number 6?
So Oliver's gonna fall over when I say this, but I have Driving Rain at number 6. And we talked before the podcast started about this, and it has a lot of sentimental value to me because it's the album that after college I was kind of going in the different direction musically, and I had kind of like, oh, McCartney, I still have his stuff, but I'm not gonna listen to it. And then this album really brought me back to Paul, so it's kind of like my homecoming in a lot of ways. And so I agree with all of the songs you mentioned earlier. I would just add in She's Given Up Talking and Your Way. But the fact that the first concert I saw Paul's was this tour, and he did several of those songs live, and just seeing him in person for the first time, having this album, it was just kind of like this big culmination for me. So for sentimentality reasons, I definitely have it up higher than it possibly should be. But I can listen to the whole album and not hate it. Besides, again, like I talked about, the creepy Heather in the song Heather creeps me out like a horror movie. But besides that song, the rest of the album I think is amazing.
Yeah. But the only thing is a little weird is why was George was working on Brainwashed in LA. Paul was there early 2001 before George has gotten really sick and was still in good condition.
Yeah.
Why didn't they meet up and record something?
So Paul had, in a couple of interviews that he gave around that time, he had talked about he and George were planning to get together, but I just feel like George and Paul, like George really had something that was bothering him about Paul, and you can see it in the anthology, and
Yeah.
George just talked about it and really, said some things, but I feel like they were kind of past a lot of that stuff at that point, and I feel like they would have gotten together, but I'm not sure if we can blame that on Heather too. I don't know.
I
Just
think we could also blame it on him dying, unfortunately.
yes, and absolutely. I think that a lot of things would have happened if he hadn't gotten sick, sadly, and passed away so young. But it's a lot of lost possibilities that come up with the Beatles sometimes. John's passing, George's passing. It's inevitable that we talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's really sad. My number 6 is Back to the Egg.
Very interesting.
maybe this is because it's not because I interviewed Lawrence Juber, because I went like a little fanboy.
I don't.
But like, I love Getting Closer. I love Spin It On. I love Arrow Through Me. This will be like a future in-depth episode.
Yes.
It's so perfect. It really is. Arrow Through Me.
So I'm getting my album that's signed by Steve, Lawrence, and Denny. So
Did you get that at Beatlefest?
no, this is the show where they played the Rockestra theme. They were all there, and I happened to bring the album with me to have them all sign it. And they were nice enough to do that. They're really, all three are really wonderful human beings. You just couldn't ask for better people, you know.
Yeah. But it's my number 6. It's a masterpiece. Now we get to the top 5. Number 5.
So I have electric arguments up here. Yep, I do. And I get that look a lot when I say that.
I'm glad you do, because I like that album a lot.
I know. It's so different from typical Paul that it really, makes me happy to hear that he really branched out in some cases. But, doing like, what was it, like the 12 songs in 12-day situation there, like Sun is Shining, I think is amazing. And how it was not a single, I cannot say. He promoted Sing the Changes instead, Dance Till We're High, which are great. Nothing too much is out of sight. But I feel like if he had done Two Magpies and Sun is Shining as singles, it may have done even better in sales than it did, But the album's great. It's experimental McCartney, and it's rock edge to it, so it's awesome.
Yeah, and so my number 5 is Memory Almost Full.
Great one.
I like that it's loud. I kind of like that. So, rumor is I've heard that, the little tapping is to mimic Heather's fake leg.
I'd forgotten about that rumor. I hope that's true. But I feel like if Stella could release a single leg necklace, yeah, and put that out in stores, I feel like Paul could definitely go to the tapping. So.
But I think Mr. Bellamy is about Heather somewhat.
That's interesting.
See Your Sunshine was, and you mean this was started before Chaos? Did you know that?
Yes, that I did know.
This is kind of like a McCartney 3 almost, because he does play most of the instruments on that. Yeah. There are 2 clunkers on this album. I cannot stand Gratitude, and I really don't like Feet in the Clouds.
Yeah, that's the third medley song, correct? It's
yeah,
it's definitely it's kind of typical of Paul too. Like most of his albums have a clunker or 2 on there, but Gratitude, I just cannot overlook that one. I just can't as a huge
it's
clunker.
Bad.
It's so bad. It's so bad. It's inexcusable. It's in my top 5 of Paul clunkers. So
Mick Clunkers.
The clunkers. Yes.
That's going to be a future episode, Mick Clunkers.
That should be a t-shirt. But yes, that is a McClunker. It's at a certain time on Friday night, so the jokes come out. So.
Yeah. So, what is the number 4?
So that's where I put Flowers in the Dirt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's another one of those where it's a sentimental situation for me again, but My Brave Face, I know it's so cheesy, but I love that song. I love Figure of Eight, but what I really love is Put It There. It's such a great tribute to his dad, I feel like, but it's also just a beautiful song. It's a beautiful melody. It's beautiful everything. And this one, that one really gets me hyped up. But the one hot take that I have on this is that I'm not as huge a fan as the Elvis Costello tracks on the album.
I agree.
I know that people have been really raving about how Elvis is the new John for Paul's collaboration, and I don't I don't see that. And I don't think that Elvis Costello's style really fit this album, or Paul's style, really, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good record, though.
I do agree. And the thing, like, we're sitting here talking, like, ranking them, but honestly, like, you're ranking gold versus gold. Like, how do you, you know, it's not like it's not a bad album here, besides Kisses on the Bottom, which is crap, but there's not a bad album here, really, you know?
There's a few clunkers. The bottom four were clunkers, but
Well, for you, yes, absolutely. I think you ranked one of my albums down there, and I'm like, but I think there are some definites that even on the clunkers, there's a good song or two, you know, and so you can't say that about a lot of albums, honestly, from the general public of people that are musicians.
yeah. So my number 4 is Venus and Mars, my favorite Wings album.
It's a good one.
Magneto Entertaining Man. I know somebody out there who hates that song, but I cannot get enough of it. I know she was gonna make a book about it, right? Just write how much she loves that song. I love Medicine Jar, the Jimmy McCulloch song.
Gosh, yes.
I love the opening song. I love Treat Her Gently. Now I love Letting Go. Just a great album. It really is.
Yeah, there's a lot of gold on that album for sure. Letting Go, I just cannot say enough good about that song. It's risen quickly up in my top 10 Wing songs for sure. It's a great song.
So I'm making a last minute switch. Number 3. I mean, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is where I put Flaming Pie. And as I'm saying this, I want to make a switch too, but I'm going to stick to what I originally put down. I think Flaming Pie is, I think it really made people sit up and take notice that Paul McCartney is not overrated, that he definitely does still have it. And when you listen to songs like Beautiful Night, you know, Some Days, Beautiful Day, and my absolute favorite on this album, my two are Calico Skies and then Souvenir, is a song that I wish he had promoted more, and I wish he would do it live. I think he would rock Souvenir like nothing. But
I don't know if his voice could handle it anymore.
that's the problem with it. And I feel like if he had his drummer Abe backing him up with the voice like he does on Eleanor Rigby in concert, he might be able to pull it off. But it's definitely a valid point. But I wish he had done something more with some of the singles on this album instead of the ones that he put out there. I think, you know, Souvenir could have been, you know, a top 10, I think. But just me anyway. How about you for your number 3?
Everybody's going to be like, why is this so low? But I had to make a... We would have agreed if I didn't switch this. Ram.
Wow, that's a bold choice, my friend.
I think I'm just fatigued on this album.
It's a very real thing. Yeah.
It's a perfect... I cannot say anything that hasn't been said about the album. Go watch my interview with Denny Sewell and listen to my episode. We were still in audio back then where I talked about this with Michael Latuvier. So, yeah, that's my number 3. Number 2.
Yeah, this was the one that I was going to switch out with Flaming Pie a second ago, but
I know what this is.
It's Band on the Run. Island Fatigue is a real thing. I haven't been able to listen to it in about 2 years because I've seen most of the songs in concert with Paul, and then I've seen Denny Lane do the album a couple times in concert, the whole thing. And so I am at the brink of my ability to listen to the songs anymore. But then when Jet comes on the radio, or 1985, or Let Me Roll, or Mrs. Vanderbilt, I can't stop moving and grooving to it. The one song that is not one that I like a lot on the album is Bluebird. It's a little bit of a hot take, I know. But Bluebird is a little bit, I don't know that it fits the rest of the album in a lot of ways, but I think if that song were taken out, the album would be pristine and flawless. But it's pretty darn close to flawless right now, I feel like. It's amazing. You can't knock, you know, this album, you know.
You can't. My number 2, lyrically, I think it's his strongest. Flaming Pie.
Love it.
The reason is not number 1 is because there are a couple clunkers on here.
Yeah. Is there right? What are your clunkers on this album?
Really Love You, and If You Wanna, and it's long. I'm already half asleep.
I think Used to Be Bad is my clunker on the album.
Oh, that's an underrated song.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think it works on, I wouldn't take it off the album because it works on the album very well, but it's probably the least favorite of my songs on that album.
Yeah.
But again, I wouldn't take it off the album though, you know? So for a strong album, that's the clunker.
So we're going to do this at the same time. I know you just have to move your head.
I do. Yes.
3, 2, 1.
Boom, baby. And Denny Sywell signed that one for me actually at Beatlefest.
Oh, nice.
On the Rams' ass, by the way. He signed it on the Rams' ass on purpose.
Denny's a fun guy. I like him a lot.
He is. He signed this after he did. He basically did a session where he drummed to Ram.
What year was this?
This was, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It was maybe the last Beatlefest prior to the pandemic, actually. But it was amazing.
New York or
New York?
New York.
New York.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did you meet? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But hearing him do the drumming to the album that he played on, it just reminded me again, and not that I didn't have to be reminded about it, but about what an amazing album it is. And the other fun thing about the album is that this is the album, the tattoo artist who tattooed McCartney's signature on my arm played this album in the background while he did the tattooing. So, because he was a huge McCartney fan too. But I think like, if he ever played the back seat of my car in concert, that would be my bucket list number 1 item. He couldn't do it vocally anymore, but if he had ever tried to do it, I would have been happy. Or Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, amazing. You know, you just how do you take anything off of Ram and say that it's bad? You can't. You just can't do it. You know. So why do you have that one as number 1?
It's a masterpiece. It's underrated nowadays. I love the title track, Tug of War. I love Take It Away. I love Somebody Who Cares. I love Here Today, Ballroom Dancing, Wanderlust, Ebony and Ivory, Pound of Sinking, Be What You See, Get It. Masterpiece.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was reading 2 critiques of it recently that came out when the album was released. One of them said that it was the album that we all knew McCartney could have written and should have written, like it was the best album he ever wrote. And the other one said, this album is amazing minus the lyrics. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, but it is a fantastic album. It totally is.
It is. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'll link your Facebook group in the description if I remember to. We can be found Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, I think. If you want to ask me any questions, have any comments, questions, criticism, I know podcast at gmail.com. Thank you, Ethan. He just recently uploaded his first episode of Fans on the Run in a while. So, that is all. And if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.